The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, welcome as you're finding your way in. I'm super excited to be here with you today. We're going to get everything set up and then we're going to rock and roll. All right, let me see if I got everything set here. Okay, if you can hear me okay and you can see my slides and it says how to ask for money in person, through the mail, and online. If you can hear me and see the slides. You're not going to see me, you'll see the slides. If you can see the slides and hear me, would you type in the question box and just let me know that all is well? For those of you who are joining in, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Just want to make sure that you can hear me okay, you can see the slides, and that all is well before we go too far. And Kristen says all is well. Awesome. That works. All right, well, I hope everybody else can see okay and can hear, because we are going to dive in. I have a ton of content for you today, and I don't want to lose a minute because we've got a lot of great stuff to cover. Our topic today is how to ask for money in person, through the mail, and online. And whether you particularly like one of these or don't like one of these, I've got some great tips for you today. If you didn't get the handouts, you should have gotten those in an email this morning. We'll make sure and get those to you. There is about 15 pages of handouts today. We've got some great stuff for you. Now here's the real problem that I'm facing today is I could do a whole webinar just on mailing. I could do a whole webinar just on asking online. I could do at least one whole webinar on asking in person. So what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to try to hit the high points and give you some great tips so that if you need to go take action quickly on some of these, you're going to be able to do that. I've got way more coming. I've got a whole bunch of videos planned, maybe a little bit later in the summer, a little later in the year before we actually get all that to you. But there is more on these topics coming because I know this is key. This is where the rubber meets the road when you're actually asking for the money. So let's just jump in. For those of you who have just arrived, welcome. I'm glad you're here. So you are probably ready for that tidal wave of cash for your organization, right? Aren't we all? And one of the ways that you get that tidal wave of cash is to be very lucky. But we don't want to sit around and wait for our luck to kick in, right? So we have to ask. You cannot expect people to wake up in the morning and decide they're going to come find some great nonprofit to give money to, because it doesn't work that way. We have to ask for the help and support that we need. That's why we are here today. If you've been working on your prospects, building a big loyal donor base, and we had a webinar on that not too terribly long ago, and if you've been doing a good job of communicating with those people, they are probably ready to be asked. And that's where we want them to be. If you're sending your newsletters, you're thanking them well, you're giving them the updates, you got the warm touches going, then they are ready. If you haven't been doing all that stuff, you may want to back up and pick up another webinar that talks about how to do those things. Because look, fundraising is based on relationships. Relationships are based on communication and trust. You need to do those things that are going to build the communication and trust. I'll tell you a quick story. One of the clients that I'm working with right now is a dog rescue just outside New York City. And last week we got on our weekly call, and the director said, "Yeah, we're up for the year. Our year-to-date numbers are up over last year." I said, "Great. Let's talk about that." And so she gave me some real specific examples of how much money and how much of this and how much of that. And I said, "Okay, so what are you doing different this year over what you've done before?" And she said, "Well, it's all that donor engagement stuff you've been telling us to do." So I'm laughing, going like, it's working? Yes, it's working. So they're up. They typically don't have a good February. They had a great February this year. This stuff works. So you have to do it if you want the stuff that we're going to do today to really be effective, to be as productive as it can be. You have to do the other stuff. But let's spend our time today really talking about the asking. Now, I know that some people are very uncomfortable asking. If that's you, we can talk more about that. What I want you to do is get into a place of asking, not for yourself, but asking so that you can serve more of those you are here to serve, so that your organization can do what it is you're here to do, okay? Everybody with me on that? We're going to talk today about online gifts versus through the mail gifts versus in-person gifts. There's some commonalities among the three, and there are some differences. So what I want to do is start by talking about those things that they all have in common, and then we're going to dig into each one of asking online, asking through the mail, asking in person, so that by the time we're done today, you're going to at least have an idea and some examples and some good worksheets on how to start with each one of those. Asking always starts with a relationship. I love that. I've already said that like twice now in the first 5 minutes. It's about the relationship. It truly, truly is. When people feel connected to your organization, they're going to give. When they feel like they're a number, when they feel like they don't matter, they're not going to give. So it's all about the relationship. Asking happens at the right time. It's not rushed. It's got to be sincere. And really what you want to do is get into not a you versus me with the donor, but we. I call it getting on the same side of the table with the donor so that you can start to paint a picture of the work your organization is doing and how the donor, as a partner with you, can help change lives, can make a difference in the world. At the end of the day, I really think that people want to make a difference. They want to be helpful to other people. They don't always know how to do it. And giving through your organization is a great way for them to fulfill that desire to help people. So keep that in mind. It's not we're over here and the donor is over there and we got to figure out how to get their money. Don't look at it that way. Look at it as, hey, we're on the same team here. We're on the same side of the table. We're trying to do the same thing. We really want the same result in the end. Asking has got to be strategic. And yes, there are times when you can whip one out of your back pocket. I have a client. This is so funny. It was at one of their events. So they do a big dog walk. It's another animal rescue group. So they do this big walk in the spring, and she had one of her major donors there, and they engaged in a conversation, and the conversation just took this turn, and she felt the time was right, and she asked this donor for $1 million gift right there on the spot, had not planned for it, and the donor said yes. It was crazy. Normally, that does not happen. That's not really how you want to do it. You want to be strategic. You want to plan things out. You want to think about it. However, if the moment is right and you know in your gut it is right, go for it. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. All right, let's talk about some universal steps of asking. These are going to hold true for you no matter what the situation is, no matter what the platform is. Here's what they are. Number one, you want to ask for a specific amount. Don't leave this open-ended. Don't say, well, just however much you can give is fine. People don't know what you mean, and everybody has a different capacity for giving. So if you're talking to somebody whose biggest gift could be $500 and you say, well, just give whatever you can give, they may write you a check for 25 bucks. If you're talking to somebody whose capacity is $5 million and you say, wow, just give whatever you could give, they might drop you a check for $10,000. Those are two real different scenarios, right? That's two real different amounts of money. And that would probably have a real different impact on your organization. So you want to ask for a specific amount. How do you know how much to ask for? Well, that's based on a lot of different things. It's based on how much that donor has given to you in the past. It's based on what you know about them. And literally, sometimes you may have to Google search somebody just to figure out what you think might be the right amount. Sometimes you can be a detective and you can find out what that person has given to another organization by looking at a donor list for the local symphony or the local community college. You can learn a lot just by snooping around. But you do want to ask for a specific amount. The second thing is you want to ask for a specific purpose if you can. Now, do I mean, hey, give us $250 so that we can buy this piece of equipment? Well, maybe you might have somebody who wants to give you money for a specific piece of equipment, but what I really mean is don't leave it open-ended. Don't say, oh, just give us money because we're a good nonprofit. If you've done the core number work, I think I've talked about core number a couple of times lately. If you've done the core number work, then you know that you can ask them to give you X number of dollars so that you can fill in the blank with whatever that is. Let me see real quick who is here. I'll pick on Candace. So Candace is here with us. Her organization provides some really cool education to girls in middle school who otherwise might not get this really cool opportunity to learn science, technology, engineering, math, those kinds of things. So instead of Candace asking for, give us $100 so that we can meet our budget, which, by the way, don't ever ask somebody to give so that you can meet your budget. That's not a compelling reason. Candace could say, with your gift of $100, we can continue to provide these amazing educational experiences to girls who might never get the chance otherwise. That's a specific purpose. Now, what's nice about that is when you word it that way, it's general enough that you can use that money for whatever you need to in your organization, because everything you do in your organization, or everything in Candace's organization, leads to supporting these girls. Hopefully that makes sense. What I want you to be really cautious of here is don't paint yourself into a corner so that you're now dealing with restricted funds. Restricted funds is when somebody gives you money for something very specific and you are obligated to spend that money on that very specific thing. All right, so ask for a specific amount for a specific purpose. And by the way, I'm about to show you a whole bunch of examples. And if you're a little confused right now, you're going to get it really fast here in just a minute. You'll see it. You want to tell a story. Now, telling a story can be long or it can be short, and it's going to depend on the purpose of your ask. It's going to depend on the format of your ask. It's going to depend on the time or the space you have for your ask as to how much of your story you tell. You're going to see some really short ones here in just a second. So the point of telling a story is to connect emotionally with the donor. Why do you need to connect emotionally? You need to connect emotionally because people give out of their heart and then they justify it with their head. So they make the decision to give based on emotion, and then they use fact to feel satisfied that they made a good decision. So you always want to include an emotional component of your ask. Then you want to spell out how they should respond. Don't leave people to figure this out on their own, because you'd be surprised at how many people can't figure it out. So if you're going to ask them to make a gift online, give them the link and literally tell them, click on the link below to make your donation safely on our website. If you're asking through the mail, then you want to say, return your gift in the envelope provided. Like, I know some of you are just going, really? You have to be that specific? Yes, you do. You have to be that specific. You will find that when you are real specific about what the next step is, people are more likely to take that next step because they don't have to figure it out. They don't have to figure out what your website is and go find it and then wonder if that's the right organization. They know exactly what to do. So those are our 4 universal steps to asking. You want to ask for a specific amount for a specific purpose, tell a story, and then spell out how they should respond. Now, we're going to take this framework. We can expand it out for certain things. We can contract it for certain things. We're going to be able to use it in lots of different ways. But if I were you, I would print this out and keep it handy somewhere so you can remind yourself that when you are asking, you want to make sure you include all of these. Now, does this also go for other kinds of asks? Yes, it does. So if you're going to ask somebody to sign up to volunteer for something, follow this format. If you're asking people to donate in kind, follow this format. You're going to get better results when you ask for a specific thing for a specific reason with specific directions on what people should do next. You're going to get better results. All right, so print this page out. This is in your handouts, by the way. You've got a specific page on universal steps to asking. You guys all know, I'm pretty sure everybody who is on live with us has been part of Project SmartSprout for a while, but just as a reminder, if you have questions as we go, you are welcome to type those into the question box, and I will do my best to answer those in context of our presentation today. I don't want you sitting there with a question on your mind. All righty, let's talk about asking online. What do we got to do to get people to click that Donate Now button? It's a good question. And there are some things that work and some things that don't. We're definitely going to follow those 4 steps to universal asking. Let me show you some real specific things about asking online. The nice thing about asking online, and here I'm talking about on your website, on Facebook, on a crowdfunding format, platform, or in email. So all of those to me are digital asks. It doesn't cost you a thing to include visuals. So include photos. Visuals are key, actually. Photos are great. Infographics can work. graphics, video is hot right now. Be sure and include visuals. And I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. You're going to go, oh yeah. If you can choose a start and end date, do that. I've seen a lot of people lately doing $5 Fridays on Facebook, and it works really well. One of the reasons why is because people go, oh, it's Friday, I should give $5. There's the donate now button, click, they give, they're done, they move on. I've got a group that I work with here locally that it's a very young organization, and they do really well with their $5 Fridays. There's a specific start and end date or time. It happens at a very specific point in time. If you put an ask out on social media or on your website or an email and you don't have a deadline, then there's no sense of urgency. People don't have any idea that you need the money right now, and so they might give or they might not. A sense of urgency moves people to take action. When you have a campaign that's going on online or you have an asks and campaigns really are two different things. Let me use the word ask. When you have an ask online, promote the heck out of it within reason. You can't, you don't want to remind people every 5 minutes, hey, give because we're raising money for this thing. But you do have to remind them more than once. You can't just post something once on Facebook and expect you're going to just get a deluge of money. It has to be strategic. It has to be planned. Remember those from a minute ago. And you have to really think about how you're going to promote it. If you have something you want to raise money for, like let's use Giving Tuesday. That's a good example of giving online or asking online. Usually you have someplace specific where you're driving people to, maybe it's your website, maybe it's a giving day platform, whatever it is for your situation. You're going to promote that on Facebook. You're going to promote that through email. You're going to promote that maybe in some other ways. Maybe offline, you're going to promote it, but you're going to promote the heck out of it, and you're going to ask people to share. Because you don't want to just post once, like, hey, Giving Tuesday is tomorrow, be sure and give us your money. It doesn't work that way. You've got to remind people. The campaigns that I've worked on for Giving Tuesday, where we have had multiple reminders, have been the most successful. Now, one of the things I definitely want you to do before you start asking people for money online, go test your Donate Now button before you begin. Number one, you want to make sure that it works. I had a client about 4 months ago. Actually, it was right before Giving Tuesday. They're a brand new client, and that was the first thing that I did. I got on their website, clicked on their Donate Now button, and got an error message. So I'm calling them immediately going, you got to get this fixed right now. They didn't realize that their Donate Now button wasn't working. The other reason you want to test your Donate Now button, and I actually did this week. If you saw my blog post earlier this week, it was about creating a flawless online donation receipt. That receipt actually is very important. If somebody gives for the first time, that receipt is their first interaction with your organization, and it needs to be good. So I picked about 10 different organizations Monday, and I made a whole bunch of donations, very small donations, but donations, because I wanted to see what their receipts looked like, and I was stunned how many of them were absolutely horrible. I had one, you may have seen it in the article, that there was no identification of the organization at all. That thing, I looked at it in my inbox. It didn't have a valid from email. It was all just gobbledygook. I still have no idea what organization just sent me this random, unbranded, vague, confusing receipt. It's nuts. So you can take that article. There was a template in the article. There was a download. You can take that and go have a look at your receipt to make sure it is as crisp as it can be. So you do want to do that before you start asking people to give online. And by the way, if you ever want me to have a look at any of those kind of things that you're doing, if you want me to have a look at your online donation receipt, you can always email it to me or post it in the Facebook group and tag me, and I'm happy to look at it and give you some feedback on that. I don't know about you, but sometimes I try something and I think this is good, but I don't really know. I would love to have an expert to ask, to say, would you have a look at this for me, please? I'm happy to do that for you. So if you want me to have a look at it, just let me know. And everybody said, yay. All right, let's talk about fundraising platforms. What should you use? Hopefully on your website, you have a way to accept both credit cards and PayPal on your website. So if I go right now, click over to your website, I want to be able to give either with PayPal or with a Visa or MasterCard or whatever I've got. The more options you give people to make their donation, the more options they have to say yes to giving. I know some organizations get really wrapped around the axle about credit card fees. Get the best fee you can. At this point in time, I don't know of any that are free. You're going to have to pay a fee for all of them. It's not that much. It is the cost of doing business. If you have to lose 3% to get somebody's $5,000 gift that you wouldn't get otherwise, then bite it and lose the 3%. It's part of doing business. You need to give people all kinds of options to give, because if you don't, you're likely to lose some donations. Is one platform better than another? Like if you're looking at different ways to facilitate an online donation, should you use Network for Good? Should you use QGive? What about crowdfunding platforms? What's the best? There are all kinds of tools out there, and that's what they are. They're tools. If you've ever been to Home Depot and started looking at drills, there's about 4 or 5 different brands. One of them is orange, and all their tools are orange. Another one is green. That's the one that we have. It's all green. And there's another one that's, I don't know, a different color. Doesn't really matter. Those are all pretty equal quality. It's just, what do you like? It's very similar with some of the fundraising platforms. Go have a look at them. Ask in the Facebook group to see what others are using. At the end of the day, I don't think it really matters as long as the platform works for you and it works for your donors. There's a couple of them that I really, really don't like because they try to get me to create an account. So as a donor, when I hit that website and I just want to make a gift and it tries to force me into creating an account, I almost want to just shut the whole thing down right then. I don't want another account. And I think a lot of people don't. So if you've got one of those where it forces people to create an account, put your email in here, whatever, like I don't want to do it. And I think a lot of other people don't either. So it's got to be good for you in terms of it works for you, it's easy to keep up with, and it's got to be super easy for your donor. If it's not easy for your donor, it's no bueno. It's no good at all. I've got a blog post somewhere on my blog about online tools that you can use. So if you go Google, if you go search on my blog for online tools, you will find this article where we dig deep into several different kinds of online donation processors or facilitators, and you can read up all about them there. All right, what about email? Using email as a way to raise money. You're probably all doing that already. Has anybody noticed that we've been doing swipe files this year where we're giving you lots of examples of things? Is anybody enjoying the swipe files? I've got a swipe file coming for you that's all email appeals. Yay! So you're gonna see a lot more of those real soon. Should you be using email? Absolutely. It's another way for you to connect with people. You got to remember a couple of things. One is you got to keep it short. Not everybody has the patience to read much, and people's attention span online is like that of a gnat. We're all real busy. We're not going to read a whole lot. So keep it super short, lots of graphics. Give me the link to click on. When you do that, people are more likely to give. So they're going to skim right through it. If they want to give, they will. If they don't, they won't. And your email actually works really well when you do it in conjunction with similar asks that you're putting on Facebook or on Instagram and something that's going on your website as well. So that's what you call cross-channel promotion. When you're asking for money for something, whether it's a specific program, a project, or just to support your organization, but you're doing it in 2 or 3 different places, your chances of success go up, and the amount of money that you're going to raise is going to go up. The amount of response that you're going to get is going to go up. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. So, and I'll give you an example. So yesterday, I take my husband to the hospital for a little outpatient surgery. Guess what happened to my inbox while I was gone all day? It was all jammed up, right? So if I were your donor and you sent out an appeal yesterday afternoon and it landed in my inbox while my inbox is all jammed up, I'm probably not going to read it because my goal this morning was just to clean out all the crap. I'm not in a very patient mood. I'm probably not going to read that. However, if I also follow your organization on Facebook and I go log in on Facebook at lunchtime and there's your appeal and it's the same thing that was in the email that I didn't see, I'm going to probably give because I saw it on Facebook. So you're going to catch me in one of those ways that you maybe would lost me in another one. Does that make sense? So if I didn't see your email, I might see it on Facebook. If I didn't see it on Facebook, I might have seen it in email. And then if you post it several times on social media and you email me a couple of times about it, I'm probably going to see it. I'm probably going to respond, as long as I feel good about your organization and the appeal is something that I want to support. All right, so definitely want to use email to support what's going on. All right, let's look at some examples. Now, I want you to keep in mind those universal steps for asking as we look at these. Remember, that was ask for a specific amount, for a specific purpose, tell a story, spell out how they should respond. So I'm going to start with, and show you a couple of examples of websites that are asking. So this is Illuminate India. And one of the things that I love about Illuminate India is they've got some great photos. So this is the top of their donate page. Check it out. Great picture. Be the hero she needs. Doesn't that tell us a little bit of a story? Like already that is tugging at our heartstrings before we look at anything else. I do want to go over and I want to show you the whole page here. So be the hero she needs. And then we go right down into 100% of your donation helps vulnerable children in India transition to adulthood with a bright future. Okay, good. This is it's very black and white. It's a little plain, but look at the donation amounts. So your gift of $50 provides one secondary student with 6 months of education. We're asking for something very specific. So we've got, we're asking for a specific amount, specific person. Did we tell a story? I think between that photo, that headline, and this one paragraph, we've got a little bit of a story going. So sometimes the photo is enough. And then be really clear about what to do next. Well, it's pretty clear. You fill in the form, get all the way to the bottom, click the submit button. That's pretty cool, pretty easy. Let me show you another one. Adopt a dog. This is a client that I'm working with right now, and you can imagine it's a dog rescue. Do you really need any more than that picture and the word donate? I think that picture is the story all on its own, right? You know exactly what that is and what that's about. Crazy stuff, but there it is. All right, let me see. Yep, okay, let me go back over here to the slides because I've got something else I want to show you. Oh, I just showed you that one. All right, this is Humane Society of Southeast Missouri. Some of you may have seen this before. Here's one that I really like this. Number one, because it's a good use of a core number. So they've calculated how much it costs them to take care of a dog or a cat for a day, and it's $6.20. Look at the colored boxes on the right. This is literally from their website, by the way. $6.20 a month provides 1 day of care. So they're asking for monthly givers here. So not just asking, hey, give us money, but you can make a big difference. And what I like about this is there's this little bit of text over on the left. What is that, like 5 paragraphs? There's a little bit of text on the left, but if you don't read that, you're going to get the gist of it from the boxes on the right. It's a little bit of a story. It's enough to start to create some emotion. There's more on this page than just this, but I like these boxes because now what happens in the mind of the donor is we're shopping. We're not making a decision, yes, I'm giving, or no, I'm not. That's not even a decision. Now we're shopping. Now we're looking at the different boxes going, oh, I want this one. So I like this one for that reason. I wanted you to see that. All right, one more on the, wait, I didn't mean to go there just yet. One more on the monthly donor. I wanted to show you this one from Draft Gratitude. Some of you seen Draft Gratitude examples before. I use a lot of them, and that's because Becky does a really good job. This is from their website. So giving monthly helps daily. At Draft Gratitude, the cost of basic care for 1 horse per day is $12. She goes on to give a little bit of a story and what you're going to get as a member of the monthly giving team. She doesn't even have there's no fancy name for her monthly giving program. But you see how you can start to tell a little bit of a story just by the things that you include on the page. By the way, I'm going to share the slides with you. So if you want to go have a closer look at some of these, you're going to be able to. No worries. All right, let me show you one that this was a Facebook ask. So this is from Best Way, our folks who literally feeds starving children in Africa. I think this Facebook ask, this one nails it on a lot of levels. Now, what I want you to understand is this picture of this man. This is Andy Perkins. He was the founder of the organization. It's actually not a picture. It's a video. It was a video. So you saw this, and you could click the video, and it's Andy talking about these children and telling the story. It was very moving and compelling. If you don't read the video, are we still getting the 4 universal steps in there? Is he asking for a specific amount? Yes. $28 a month gives food, health care, education, and the love of Jesus to a needy child. So it's a specific amount for a specific purpose. What I love about the very first sentence is it's a tiny bit of a story, but it creates context. 50 malnourished Liberian children are waiting for sponsors today. Between that and the video, it's enough of a story that your heart is pulled and you want to give to support what they're doing. They've made it very easy to get the context and to understand what's going on with these children. You guys getting this? Pretty cool. Let me show another one this one's a little on the funny side. I know I've just shown you starving children in Africa, and now we have hungry puppies. Those are the two that everybody's like, well, if we were feeding starving children in Africa, or if we had sad puppy eyes, we could raise money, right? You all have very sexy causes, but these are great examples. I wanted to show you this. So these guys nailed this ask. They nailed it in so many ways. The picture is fantastic. Look at the little sad puppy faces. And then the text says, can you see the plea in their eyes? These puppies don't just need a home. We've run out of puppy food again. So they even say, here's the specific kind of puppy food we need. You can click here and get it, and it'll be delivered to us. To me, this just nails the 4 steps to asking. By the way, do you want to guess how much puppy food they got as a result of this Facebook post? It was a lot. This actually worked really, really well for them, and we got a good laugh out of it. All right, are you starting to get this? Here's another one. This was a Giving Tuesday campaign for, I just went blank, Stillwater's Learning Center. It's a private Christian school outside of Atlanta. And I wanted to show you this for a couple of reasons. One is they were very successful with this campaign that you can see. Look at underneath the headline where it says sponsor a scholarship. Look what it says next. Come and partner in 4 children's education. So they were trying to raise enough money to completely scholarship 4 kids. So I think that's pretty cool. They're telling us what they're doing. They've got a great photo. Then down below on the selected giving level, that's awesome, where they're asking for specific amounts for specific reasons. Now, if you could see the text underneath where it says 1205, the text says pays for 1 half day of school for 1 child. So it tells us what's going on. This campaign worked incredibly well. This actually was their first year to do Giving Tuesday. I helped them put this together, and their goal was $19,000. They actually raised almost $26,000, which is crazy. Very successful for them. So we got to ask for a specific amount, specific purpose, tell a story, tell people how they should respond, and you can raise money online. The nice thing about online fundraising is it's pretty easy to do. And because it's so easy to do, it's really easy to do it on the fly and to be a little reactive. So I do want to remind you that you need to be strategic, and you need to think about your ask. You need to think about the timing of your ask. Think about what else you have been sharing with people online, especially on social media, especially with email. Think about what else has been going on before you just ask. Everybody has that one friend that the only time we hear from them is when they want something. Don't be that. And the way that you avoid being that is by balancing out your asks with the non-asks. So you do have to really pay attention to what you're sharing when you're sharing it, so that when you're ready to put an ask out, people are ready to hear it. They're ready to get it, and they're ready to give. All right, let's switch over and talk about asking through the mail. I love direct mail. Don't let anybody tell you that direct mail is dead. It is not. Not by a long shot. Direct mail is not dead. I've raised a lot of money through the years. I've done it myself, and I've helped a lot of clients raise money through the mail, so it absolutely can be done. But direct mail is tricky. Sending a letter through the mail is tricky business. Most people think, well, if we just write the perfect letter, then people will give. And that's really not it. The key is in the list. It's in the list of people that you're mailing to. If it's your list, you have to really think about what you've been doing to nurture those relationships. If you've been doing nothing, you're not going to do as well through the mail as if you had been doing things to make people feel good, sending other things through the mail. Um, Used to, before there, oh my gosh, I'm so old. Used to, before there was such a thing as email newsletters, all our newsletters were print. And it was really important to send those print newsletters consistently because that's what balanced out the appeal so that people didn't feel like you were just asking all the time. You got to take care of your list. If you try to rent a list, you really need to talk to me first. Renting a list is incredibly tricky business. You can't just get the list of rich people from certain zip codes in town and think you're going to do really well through the mail. You will be sadly disappointed. It doesn't work that way. So trust me on this, the list is really the most important thing. The offer is the next most important thing. So again, not the letter, but the offer. What is the offer? It's the thing you're asking people to support. It's the give $6.20 a day to provide a day's, or give $6.20 so we can provide a day's worth of care to a homeless dog or cat. Give $12 to provide a day's worth of whatever. That's your offer, and that's what's important. And honestly, if you think you want to put a letter in the mail, I would say start first by figuring out your offer. Decide that first, and you might even design your reply slip first and then write your letter. And the letter, OMG, the letters, well, there's some samples in here. We'll get to that in just a minute. The letter has to be well done, and it can't be whatever that you want to put in there. And most letters sound like this. Oh, we so appreciate all the support you've given us in the past. You've been great. It's been a tough year, but we're hanging in there. We really need your help. Please consider supporting us. Thank you so much. That is not a good letter. First of all, don't ever start your fundraising letter by thanking people for their past support, because if that's the only paragraph they read, they think it's a thank you letter and they're done. They won't give. All right, more about that in just a minute. Timing is really important. You want to look at the timing in a couple of ways. Timing as it relates to other things you have going on. So I have a client who has a spring appeal that we first planned to send in late February. And then we realized there was a community giving day going on, and we didn't want the appeal going out at the same time as that. So we actually pushed it into March. And then there was something else that happened in March, and we're like, well, I'll push it into April. And then something else popped up in April. We're like, no, back it up. So we had to look at the timing of other things that were going on in their organization and other things that were going on in the community, because we didn't want to put that letter out at the same time as the community giving day, because that's not going to work. Everybody's giving to the community giving day, right? We didn't want it to go in the mail the week that all the local schools are on spring break, because nobody's going to read it. So timing is important. You can also look at seasons of the year. If I were to ask you which season of the year would be best for mailing, which one would you think? If you said fall, you're right. Letters that are sent in October are always going to do better than letters sent in March. Always. Summer is a terrible time for direct mail. Don't send a letter out in June or July or August. They're not going to do well. And if you think about it, it makes sense. People are on vacation. They're not home. They're not going to respond. If you send something via email, it's a different story, because people are still checking their email. They may not give when they're on vacation, but they're still looking at it. So seasons and timing is important. You do want to measure a couple of things. I'm always stunned when I ask people, how did your appeal do? And they're like, well, we raised some money. I'm like, all right, then let's talk about success in terms of some hard numbers. You always want to measure response rate. Your response rate is basically taking the number of donations that come back to you and dividing that by the total number of pieces that you mailed out. That gives you a response rate. Response rates across the board vary. There's not a number I can give you that, like, if you don't do 10%, you're not doing well. Some organizations do 4 or 5%, and that's what they do. Others do 10 or 15%, and that's what they do. It's usually not more than about 15%. And it seems kind of crazy that more people wouldn't respond, but that's just how it is. I'm going to show you an example here in a minute. We can dig more into that. You also want to look at your average gift size. On average, how much are people giving? Now, that one I can tell you. Usually, just across the board with direct mail, $35 is a good average gift size. So if yours is 70, then you're doing twice the average, and that's really good. You do want to keep up with those numbers so that you have some idea of how you're doing. One of the other reasons that I want you to keep up with the numbers, let me back up here just a second, is because when you know your numbers, you can predict with some pretty eerie accuracy how well your appeals are going to do in the future. Many years, yes, long time ago when I was at the food bank, I could tell you if I were to mail in the spring, within like $100, I could tell you exactly how many thousands of dollars we were going to raise. And it all had to do with building the relationships with the donors. I knew exactly how my spring appeals performed, so I knew what the average response rate was going to be. So what that meant was I knew if I mailed 1,000 letters, I was going to get 12% of them back. My average gift size was going to be $55. So then I was just doing math. I had a board chair one time look at me and say, "Do you have like a crystal ball or something? Because you always know exactly how this is going to work." I just knew the numbers. So it's pretty cool when you can predict it that closely. All right, writing tips. Keep it conversational. Don't get all in your head and try to sound smart. Your letter needs to flow. It needs to sound very conversational, as if you and I were sitting and talking, not me reading a letter that you wrote. If it's stiff or disjointed or full of jargon, I'm not going to read it because I'm not going to work that hard. Start with a story, get that emotional connection first, then you can pivot and start talking about why you need people's help, and then ask for the money that you need. Never, ever, ever try to write or edit a letter like this with a committee from your board. It's not going to work. You're going to wind up with something that looks like Frankenstein. Everybody has their opinions. Everybody likes certain things about direct mail, but I'm pretty sure that most of you do not have anybody who is a direct mail expert on your board. So if they are not an expert in how this works, I would not allow them to edit the letter. People, like especially retired teachers, like to edit for grammar. Correct grammar doesn't matter in a direct mail letter. In a fundraising letter, the point is to motivate people to give. And sometimes you have to break some grammar rules in order to get people to give. So you can just take that one to the bank. All right, I'm going to show you an example here. This is a one-page letter, which I thought was pretty cool. Now I realize you can't read that, and probably even when you get the slides, you're not going to be able to read it. But what I want you to see is a one-page letter from Draft Gratitude. This went out in the spring of 2016. And we focused on this horse named Jetstar. The first sentence in the letter says, "I'll never forget the night I met Jetstar." And then like the first half of the letter is about this horse and the horrible shape that he was in when he came in. And then it pivots to an ask. It's a real specific ask. And there was an envelope a return envelope in with the letter. So they mailed 300. I want you to see the numbers here. They mailed 300 letters, got 29 replies. So that was a 9.7% response, that's pretty good. Obviously, I want to see as big of a response as possible. They got $1,522 back for an average gift size of $52.48. If you remember, I told you a minute ago, the average is $35. That's above average. That's pretty good. So not bad. This was actually their very first time of putting a letter in the mail from Draft Gratitude. So Becky and I were working together. We made sure that she was really nailing it with the warm touches and staying in touch with people. Her newsletter goes out like clockwork. She was sharing some great stories and behind-the-scenes stuff on Facebook. And the next spring, she mailed again. The next year, the story was about Pearl, a different horse. Very similar format. And here's what happened. By the next year, she had more people on her list. She'd been growing her list. So instead of 300 people, she had 525. So she mailed 525, got 63 replies for a 12% response. So that's up from the previous year. She raised $6,455, average gift size of $102.46. That is crazy good. Crazy good. Now let me show you these side by side. Look at the numbers. So the first year she made 300, the next year up to 525. Where did those people come from? She was working that whole year to build her donor base. So that's one of the reasons why you've got to have your donor acquisition radar up all the time. You can't just do it every now and again or when you remember. You got to always be looking for those new people to come join your donor family. Look at what happened. 29 replies the first year, 63 the next year. So that's more than double the number of donations, which is great. Her response rate went up from 9.7 to 12%. That's fantastic. Fantastic response. Her income, the income on the appeal went from 1522 to 6455. That's a jump of almost $5,000. That's huge for a small organization. And then of course you can see the average gift size almost doubled, which is, those are outstanding, crazy good numbers. So I just wanted to show you that so that you really get that direct mail is not dead. Those are numbers from just the last couple of years. Last year in 2018, she had a whole lot of stuff going on and decided not to do. She did not do an appeal in the spring last year, but she did a slightly different campaign and did very well with it. I don't have the exact numbers to share with you. Did really well. This year she did not do a spring appeal either, but I did want you to see the numbers that she did do. Now, you're probably like me going, why, if she has numbers this good, why would she not keep doing it? You know as well as I do, when you're a one-person shop and you have everything on your shoulders, sometimes you have to make a hard decision that something is not going to get done. And sometimes that can happen. I think what you want to do is make sure that in your fundraising plan, if you want to have a spring appeal, a fall appeal, whatever it is, it goes on the calendar and then you make a commitment to get it done. If you're counting on the revenue from an appeal, it can't slip. You have to get it done. But hopefully that, oops, I just skipped ahead too much. Hopefully that is that's helpful for you. Now I wanted to show you this as well. These are some of the reasons why her numbers went up so much. Number one is because she does a very consistent monthly newsletter. It's warm, it's engaging, it's fantastic. She has lots of good Facebook posts with behind the scenes video, which people love. If you can do any kind of behind the scenes stuff, people love that. She gave people lots of ways to get involved. Different ways they could volunteer or engage in an online auction or just other things. She really focuses on the donor, not just the money. And that is critical if you want to be successful with your fundraising activities. All right, let's look at asking in person. I have a feeling there's probably at least one person here today that this is really what you wanted was how, darn it, I'm sorry, I keep bumping my mouse and it's bumping. I bet there's somebody here who really came here today looking for this. How do I ask in person? Well, keep in mind those 4 universal steps to asking. You're going to ask for a specific amount, for a specific purpose, tell a story, spell out how they should respond. Those still apply. Some of us get really nervous when we need to ask in person. We get a little tongue-tied. I get that. If you're nervous, but you need to go ask, start with somebody who's pretty low risk. Because then if you mess it up, it's okay. Don't practice on your best prospects. Don't practice on your best prospects. Practice on your board members first. Because the truth is, if you go ask a board member for some money, let's say $100, and you mess it up, they don't know. They don't know you messed up. It's all good. That's a low-risk way to get started. All right, here's some tips, some guidelines for asking in person. The first one is know your prospect. Who are you talking to? Who are you going to sit down with? Is it somebody who gives to a lot of organizations in the community? Is it somebody with a very strong connection to your cause? Is it somebody who is the CEO of the biggest company in town? Who is your prospect? What do you know about them? What do they get excited about? What sets their heart on fire? The more you know about your prospect, the more that you can tailor your request to that person. When you can tailor the request, you are going to be much more likely to get what you are looking for. Practice on a low-risk prospect first. We just talked about that. When you go to sit down with somebody to ask, now let me back up and say, you typically don't want to ask in the first meeting. So let's say you have You've been introduced to someone who you know has a lot of money and you know that they support the kind of work your organization does. So you set up a lunch meeting. You may not want to ask in that first meeting. I would use that first meeting as an informational gathering meeting. I would want to learn as much as I could about that person. I would plan the questions that I wanted to ask. And when I got in, I might even say to that person, do you mind if I take a couple of notes? Like if you think that's not the right thing to do, then definitely, darn it, sorry about that. Definitely don't do that. But definitely have it planned to be strategic, know exactly what you want to ask, know what you want to learn. Don't just go in like I did the first time I did a lunch with a donor. I knew I needed to do that, so I invited one of our biggest donors to lunch. I got her there. I thought I was going to throw up because I was so nervous, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't have any idea what I should say to her, what I knew I should be asking questions. I hadn't planned it out. So don't do it that way. Think about it ahead of time about what things you want to know. Now, what I had going for me is I knew the difference between a closed-ended and an open-ended question. A closed-ended question can be answered in one word. Yes, no, true, false. An open-ended question requires an explanation. So I started asking her open-ended questions just to get her talking. I knew that I needed to listen and she needed to talk. I needed to hear what she had to say. So I came up with some questions to ask her, like, how did you first get involved with our organization? And what's your favorite thing about our organization? I asked her all kinds of crazy things. And honestly, once I got her started talking, it was pretty easy to keep the conversation going from there. If you're like me and you can get nervous in a situation like that, you need to plan out your questions. And if you have to, you can write them down on a little index card, on a sticky note or something, put it on the table next to your water glass just so you can see it if you need to. Don't be too obvious about it, and don't make the donor feel uncomfortable about it. And you can even say, I have a lot of questions I want to ask you, and so I hope you don't mind I jotted them down so I wouldn't forget anything. That's okay. Just be honest, keep it real, you'll be fine. Now, when you sit down, maybe in a second meeting, so if your first meeting is about information gathering, you learn all kinds of things about your donor, what you might do is think about what your next step needs to be. So at the end of your lunch, you might say, hey, have you ever been by our place for a tour? I'd love to show you around. Or if a tour is not appropriate, if you have an event coming up, you can say, hey, were you planning to come to our gala next month? I'd love for you to come join us. I've got empty space at my table. You're welcome to join me. Know what your next step is. Your next step might be, hey, I've got some information I want to send you that I think might be interesting. And maybe it's a video that you want to send them that talks more about what your organization does. Maybe it's your annual report. Whatever it is, know what your next step is. And once you take that next step, be ready to set another meeting where you can go to follow up with that person, ask them what they thought, and ask them to give. So normally if I'm doing this, I've got something real specific in mind. If I've got a prospect that I know is all about my XYZ program, then that's kind of where I'm leading this person. My first conversation is I'm going to ask them a whole lot of questions about their interest, and I want to find out what really sets their heart on fire about that. And then ultimately, I'm going to ask them to support that program. When you go in for that ask, when it is time to sit down and make that ask, you definitely want to be planned and prepared. Don't wing this. Don't shoot from the hip. Know what you're going to do next. I want to take you over to the handouts. Here we go. By the way, there's all kinds of handouts in here about the direct mail. You've got a planning template, a production schedule, a budget template, a data maintenance sheet, which is super important, a letter template, a proofing checklist, a sample letter. There's a ton of stuff in there. You can have a look at those later. And if you have questions about any of those, let me know. Here's what I wanted to show you. This is what I call an ask conversation formula. When it is time to sit down with somebody to ask them for money, here's how you want to do it. You start with what I would call warm up or small talk, and you got to keep this really short. When you're nervous, it's real easy for this to just drag on and on and on, and you don't want to do that. So you can say something like, oh, how was your vacation? Or how are you enjoying the early spring? And then let them say whatever they're going to say and then go right to, well, thank you for meeting with me. I'm here today to talk to you about something that I'm pretty sure matters to you. I know from our past conversations that you care about the girls that are in our program. We talked about how important this is, and you shared whatever they shared. If you can hook it back to something they told you in the conversation, that's super helpful. So if you're talking to a woman who had told you in the earlier meeting that she loved math when she was in school, then you can bring this up now. So I'm using Candace as an example. Candace, I hope you don't mind. I know from our past conversations that you really care about girls in middle school and the ability for them to learn math and science. We talked about that, and you said that you loved math when you were that age. And the person's probably going to nod and say something about that. And then you can move right on to step 4, which is the ask. Well, we believe that every middle school girl deserves the chance to have access to a program like ours to learn science, technology, engineering, and math. Right now, we have a waiting list that we would love to eliminate, and we need your help. I'd like to ask you to consider making a donation of $10,000 to help us do that. All right, see how that kind of wraps everything together. When you have the words about eliminating the waiting list, that creates a sense of urgency. That's about needing help right now. We're asking for a specific amount, for a specific purpose, and here's the deal. Once you ask and you say, I'd like you to consider making a donation of $10,000 to help us do that, stop. Close your mouth and don't say anything. This is really hard because what's going to happen is there's something called a pregnant pause. It's this bit of silence that happens. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable with silence. You need to be quiet because they are thinking. They're thinking about how much is in their checking account. They're thinking about how much money they can get access to quickly. They're thinking about what other commitments they have. And if you start talking, you interrupt their thinking and they can't answer you with a yes or a no. So you have to be quiet. You have to give them a minute to process what you've just said and ask. What's going to happen next is they're going to either say yes, no, or maybe, and then you can go from there. If they say yes, great. Be ready to tell them what their next step is. And the next step might be, I'm going to leave this envelope here with you, and you can write a check and just mail it to us. Or the next step might be, I'll be happy to come back by and pick up a check from you, or you can go online and make that donation, whatever that looks like. If they say no, then you might ask them where you misjudged it because you were pretty sure they were going to be interested in this program. No usually means not that amount, not right now, or not that project is usually what no means. So you can clarify that no. Most of the time you're going to get a maybe, and the maybe is going to sound like this. That's really interesting. Let me talk to my husband, son, daughter, accountant, attorney, parents, fill in the blank. Let me talk to my fill in the blank person about that. Now, if that happens, you say, that sounds great. When would you like me to follow up with you? So that's called bookending the conversation. Because you started the conversation, you let them tell you what they want to say, and then you say, great, when would you like me to follow back up with you? And you put it on the calendar, you agree to it, and then you don't get into that weird space where you've asked somebody for something and they haven't responded and you don't know what to do next. They're basically giving you permission to call them to see what their decision is. And that's a cool thing. All right, so that is asking in person. Do you see now why I said like we could spend easily an hour on each of these things? Easily an hour on asking online, asking through the mail, asking in person. I wanted to give you enough that you could get started with it. The bottom line here is always be strategic. Don't shoot from the hip with this. Ask for a specific amount, for a specific purpose. Tell a story. Give clear directions for responding. That's how you're going to get what you're looking for. If you have questions, you have Coaching Zone coming up. I don't have the date of that on top of my head, but you can watch. We send out plenty of notices about that, so you can come to Coaching Zone and ask questions. You can always pop in the Facebook group with a question. You can email me with a question. It's all good. All right, let me ask you, what have you learned today? if you don't mind, type in the question box and let me know your big takeaway. I'm very curious about what has really stuck out for you today. As always, I hope that you will go back through your notes from today, circle one thing that you can get started on within the next week, just so that you can start asking better. And it might be as simple as, I need to be more strategic and purposeful in how I'm asking, and when I'm asking, and what I'm asking people to give for. I get that. All right, our next webinar coming up is on April 4th. I'll be talking about newsletters that entice your donor to give. Most newsletters are crap. I'm going to show you some really good ones and show you what you need to do to make yours a super de-duper good. All right, thank you so much for being here today. I know we are right at the top of the hour. I know there's a lot of things that you could have done today, and you chose to be here with me, and I really appreciate that. Have a very, very good rest of your day, and I hope to see you real soon in the Facebook group. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.